a number of bills that will only be, or rather, its publication will be done within 7 days, other than any other bill whose period is 14 days. In this standing order, number 120, Part C indicates that the bill, together with the memorandum referred to in standing order 117 on memorandum of objects and reasons, has been published in the Gazette as a bill to be originated in the National Assembly. And unless in the case of a division of revenue bill, the county allocation of revenue bill, an appropriation bill or a supplementary appropriation bill, a finance bill, a county government's additional allocations bill, an equalization fund appropriation bill will be under 7 days during its publication. And in the case of any other bill, will go through publication in 14 days. So in this case, the supplementary appropriation bill is one of the bills that are listed in the standing order that its publication will be within 7 days. But the chairperson for Budget and Appropriations Committee will be seeking to have the days be reduced from the 7 days or the stipulated 7 days to 4 days. And this is a bill that once the procedural motion has been approved by the members of the National Assembly, then the bill is lined up to be read for the first time. This is a bill that seeks to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and their application towards the service of the 4-year on the 30th of June 2024, and to appropriate the sums for certain public services and purposes. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, is in the chambers. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Mheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetoa nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tunakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikisha mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Ring the bell.
Well, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, has directed that a quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. And this is pursuant to the House Standing Order number 34, that at the commencement of the House or of a committee, the whole House shall be 50 members. So the number that is currently inside the chamber is not 50. And that has necessitated the call for a quorum bell by the Speaker. Of course, this is to alert the members who may be within the precincts of Parliament, but yet to make the way to the chambers, to be able to speed up and get to the chambers and join their fellow members. already in the chambers for the House to attain that required number of 50 members. And as you can see, that is what we will be seeing members getting into the chambers once the number is achieved. The sergeant at arms who are keeping tabs with the numbers of the members who are in and those who are walking in. Then, once the quorum is achieved, they will be alerting the clerk, and the speaker will be calling the House to order for the commencement of the House business. But what we will be seeing now is that members will be getting into the chambers until that number is achieved. And this is pursuant to the House standing order that if the quorum is not present at the commencement of the House business, then business cannot start unless and until that number is achieved. Looking at the business that is lined up for consideration at the National Assembly sitting this afternoon is that the supplementary appropriation bill number 3 of the National Assembly, a bill that is lined up to have its publication period reduced from 7 days to 4 days in a procedural motion by the chairperson. Budget and Appropriations Committee will be read for the first time on the National Assembly floor. And this is a bill that makes provisions for giving statutory sanctions for public expenditure for the year ending on the 30th of June 2024 on the basis of the supplementary estimates 1. Remember, the supplementary estimates have already been tabled of expenditure 2023-2024 and the supplementary estimates 1 of expenditure 2023-2024. One is on the recurrent and the other one is on the development and for the appropriation of those amounts. This bill is lined up to also proceed to second reading as well as
What happened
third
to a
reading at
covenant on
the
quorum?
committee of the whole stage. So the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over back to the
I
proceedings.
don't see
Good
any of
afternoon.
the whips on either side.
I think, Honorable
And
Speaker.
you assured the House
Yes.
as an office that at the beginning of every session, all your chairmen or chairpersons of committees must be in the House because their numbers alone constitute quorum. When you add on the vice chairs, we have more than enough members. What has happened?
Honorable Speaker.
Majority?
Yes. I think, Honorable Speaker.
Can you reassure the House
I want to reassure
of
the
that
House
commitment?
that we
Because
have a.
it is very unkind to the Speaker to allow him to come and sit here helplessly as we continue ringing the bell when you have enough members, even without whipping, to whip themselves to be here.
Honorable Speaker, it's very unfortunate that this thing is happening. And as you said, we have the numbers, especially chairs and vice chairs. And I think I want to be very categorical that they have lacked sense of responsibility.
And it's not that you don't have choices, you do.
Yes, we have choices. And I think, Honorable Speaker, I can assure you, as we approach the next session of Parliament, we'll crack the whip on our chairs and vice chairs so that we ensure that as we come back after recess, we do not have this kind of a problem.
Thank you.
Also embarrasses us as leadership.
Yes. McLeod, the Speaker doesn't need any help on this. Take your seat. Take your seat. Clerk, call.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Moses Krima. Honorable Moses Krima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I beg to petition this Honorable House on behalf of one Mr. Jarand Mulikiro a citizen or a resident of Central Imenti. Mr. Speaker, sir, I, the undersigned, on behalf of one Gerard Mulikiru, residing in Central Imenti constituency, draw the attention of this Honorable House to the following. That through a letter dated that 1st January 2025, one Mr. Gerard Mulikiru was wrongly terminated by Absa Bank, formerly the Bankrate Bank of Kenya Limited. That Absa Bank claimed that in the course of duty, Mr. Gerard Mulikiru incurred a loss of Kenya shillings 149,000 Kenya shillings, which was borrowed from him by the then retail manager in the same bank. That on the spot, investigations done on 30th November 2004 by the senior retail manager revealed that Mr. Gerard Mulikiru and a shortage of only Kenya shillings 366 and 10 cents. That Mr. Gerard Mulikiru launched a trade dispute with the Minister of Labor and Social Protection, who recommended that he be reinstated without loss of benefits or breaking years of service, be paid 10 months gross salary as compensation for the wrongful or unfair termination, and any other relief the management would deem it fit in a judgment dated 7th February 2008. That the petitioner is a victim of witch hunting, discrimination, intimidation, nepotism, and malice. That the matter presented in this petition is not pending before any court of law or any other constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioner prays that the National Assembly, through the Public Petition Committee, inquire into the dismissal of Mr. Gerard Mulikiru by Absa Bank, formerly the Bankrate Bank of Kenya Limited. Recommend that Absa Bank considers reinstating the petitioner without loss or breaking years of service, and makes any other recommendations or action it deems fit in addressing the plight of the petitioner. And your petitioner will ever pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Kirima. Daud. Honorable Daud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support the petition by Honorable Kirima regarding Mr. Gerald. Mr. Speaker, the amount involved is so petty that somebody can have a mistake in the daily accounts, the ones he receives in the bank. And I think the Absa Bank should have been more considerate with Mr. Gerald and should unequivocally reinstate Mr. Gerald with his benefits, because 361 shillings difference in the takings should not be a reason to be dismissed. So I join Honorable Kirema in this petition.
Atandi, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me first of all thank Gerald for being courageous enough to bring this matter to this House. Honorable Speaker, a lot of Kenyans working in private sector, especially in banks, suffer a lot under some of these conditions that are humiliating, and they are unable to raise these matters because they fear that if these matters come to the limelight, they will never be able to get jobs elsewhere. Because in the financial sector, once you are deemed to have been fired in one bank, you can't get a job in the next bank. So, Madam Honorable Speaker, this is very, very courageous of him. And Honorable Speaker, the committee that's going to look at this matter must do thorough investigations. But Honorable Speaker, this is the only country where international companies can easily fire locals without even any action taken on them. And this happens every day, Honorable Speaker. So this is the time this House also looked at another aspect that we don't look at very seriously, where international staff working in banks, international banks, doing jobs that can be done by Kenyans. You find an expatriate coming here to do a job which can be done by Kenyans, and we don't take this matter serious. So, Honorable Speaker, let the committee go deeper into this matter and investigate many other cases of this nature. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next order. Sorry. I've not committed the petition. The petition is committed to the Public Petitions Committee to report back in 60 days, as is required under the standing orders. Is the chair here? Owen Bayer, job. It's your job. I'm not asking you to say anything, but you can see. Yes. And the order paper is normally circulated. The chairman know that matters relating to their jurisdiction are coming, and they are not here. Next order, inform your chairman for public petitions and encourage members. Honorable members, we are not trying to be hard on you. It's your duty to be in this house. You are elected to be in this house. And I can tell you, you are truly here for all my years in parliament. The speaker found me in parliament. When the speaker left, I followed him when he's leaving. Every single day. And it never affected my election back home. So don't say that you are in the constituency when you are supposed to be in the house. You must be here. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 21st November 2023. 1. Legal notice number 186 of 2023 relating to revision of the laws, rectification order 2023, and the explanatory mandatory from the Office of the Attorney General. Second, annual report of the Victim Protection Board for the financial year 2022-2023 from the Office of the Attorney General. 3, quarterly economic and budgetary review report for financial year 2023-2024 from the National Treasury. 4, annual report of the National Land Commission for the financial year 2022-2023 from the National Lands Commission. 5, annual audited report of the Kenya Industrial Property Institute for the financial year 2021-2022 from the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. 6, the biannual report on the status of alcohol and drug abuse control in Kenya, 17th edition, covering from the period of July to December 2022 from the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. 7, reports of the Auditor General on financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 and certificates therein in respect of the following: de-risking, inclusion and value enhancement of pastoral economics drive project, Enable Youth Kenya program, Samata Wajia Road project, Merile Marsabit Road rehabilitation project, East Africa Skills Transformation and Regional Integration project, State Department for Roads, and lastly, Honorable Speaker, Africa Environmental Health and Pollution Management Project, EHPMP. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Before we call the next order, honorable members, allow me to acknowledge in the Speaker's gallery, I wish to introduce to you a delegation of 6 staff from the Department of Official Reports in the Parliament of Uganda. Honorable members, they are on a visit to the National Assembly to learn about the production of timely and accurate verbatim reports of the proceedings of Parliament in the Directorate of Hansard and Audio Services. On my behalf and that of the National Assembly, I welcome them and wish them fruitful engagement during their stay in the country. Thank you. In the public gallery, we have University of Nairobi Students Association Nyanza chapter from various constituencies and various counties. Again, on your behalf and my own behalf, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The member for Mandera South, Honorable Abdul Haro.
Honorable Speaker, Pursuant to Standing Order 33-1, I seek leave for the adjournment of the House for purposes of discussing a definite matter of urgent national importance regarding the current severe El Nino crisis and its devastating effects, particularly in Mandera County. Honorable Speaker, the adverse effects of the El Nino crisis are significantly impacting a lot of critical facets of our country. The rains are disrupting the ongoing national exams for students with potential long-term consequences on the education and future prospects of students. In Mandera County, numerous schools are also being utilized as refugee shelters, posing challenges to both the displaced individuals and the educational institutions involved. Some vital healthcare facilities, including hospitals, are submerged, rendering them inaccessible. This has unfortunately left the affected population without access to medical assistance in the wake of dangerous outbreak of diseases. Honorable Speaker, it is disheartening to note that private individuals have had to step in actively to engage in rescue and relief efforts, underlying the urgency and the gravity of the situation. The current death toll stands at 46, with over 14 reported injuries, and the potential for further casualties is imminent if immediate action is not taken. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek leave for adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national concern with a view to exploring possible and long-lasting solutions. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Do you have the requisite support? The support is overwhelming. Honorable members, may take your seats. You may take your seats now. Honorable member for Mandera Central. Order, honorable members. Order, Honorable Bowen and your group. Honorable members, I direct that having garnered the requisite support numbers, this motion of adjournment will be moved at the end of the business at order number 12 or at 5:30, whichever comes earlier. Are we together, honorable member? At the end of the business at order number 12 or at 5:30, whichever comes earlier. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Next.
Order number 8, procedural motion, reduction of publication period of a specified bill.
Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, that this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the supplementary appropriation number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, from 7 days to 4 days. And Honorable Speaker, the essence of this, as members are aware, there is nothing much happening in regards to government, and that is affecting actually this House just like any other agency of government, because when there is process like the one we are undertaking now for supplementary estimates, as members are aware, the system of government, famously known as IFMIS, usually does not operate. And the reason for this, Honorable Speaker, is usually because some of the effects we are making on the budget, some MDAs could proceed, for example, to expend the monies probably which have already been proposed for cuts. So the essence of actually locking, in quotes, the IFMIS is usually for tidiness of government financials, because the process we are undertaking now is to vary the budget. And we cannot now be expending the same monies that we are varying. So the essence of this motion is for us to be able to conclude the debate in regards to appropriations bill today, and henceforth then conclude the matter of supplementary estimate, so that then we can free up resources to go into our CDF, to go into our roads, to go into our water, for Parliament to operate, and any other government agency. And Honorable Speaker, I request the very eloquent member for Kirinyaga, Honorable Jerry, to second.
It's an eloquence here. Just
Honorable
second.
Speaker, I I rise to second, and I thank my very good friend and role model to many of the young politicians, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, the member for Kiharu. Honorable Speaker, indeed, we need the country to be able to operate, and I am seeking that once this is done, Treasury releases the funds with immediate effect so that we can get back to work. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Njeri. Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the supplementary appropriation number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, from 7 days to 4 days. Is that the mood of the House? I'll now put the question, which is that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the supplementary appropriation number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, from 7 days to 4 days. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Order. Honorable Mwenje, before we declared you whip, you are fighting to sit on the front bench. Now that we have done so, you've shifted to the back bench. Okay, next order.
Order number 9, the supplementary appropriation number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, first reading. An act of parliament, a bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and the application towards the service of the year ending on the 30th June 2024, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, the supplementary appropriations number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, second reading.
Chairman, Budget and Appropriations Committee, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to move that the supplementary appropriations number 3 bill, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023, be read for a second time. And Honorable Speaker, as members are aware, last week we robustly debated the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee in regards to the supplementary estimates. And therefore, I'll just highlight just but a few of the issues that are already here in this supplementary, in this bill, of the supplementary appropriations bill, that is supplementary 1 of 2023. And Honorable Speaker, I was able to appraise the members of the fact that the essence of this supplementary budget that we are currently debating today and hopefully conclude by end of this session, the reason why we had to do this supplementary budget at this time is primarily hedged on only 3 things. One of the critical things that we are doing in rearranging government financials in this supplementary estimates 1, the main thing was the repayment of interest rates of the obligations that we owe both domestically and externally. And Honorable Speaker, as members are aware, we passed the budget, the main budget in June. But from June to date, there has been dynamics across the money markets. And the money markets are the ones that affect the cost of money. One, Honorable Speaker, is that we have seen a rise or increase in interest rates here locally, as we have seen increase in foreign or global interest rates. And Honorable Speaker, most of our foreign debt is dollar denominated. And even to start with the global figure about our debt, is that Kenya, give or take, has around 10-point-something trillion Kenya shillings in debt. And out of which 50% of that debt is foreign. Most of the foreign debt is dollar denominated. Honorable Speaker, from January to date, our local currency, the cash, has lost over 21%. And therefore, in consequence, what that means is that around 4.3 trillion Kenya shillings that we owed by the beginning of this year has been able to escalate to around 5.3 trillion, majority of which is not money that we have borrowed, but just the variations in our local currency in regards to the dollar, which is a denomination that is used in most of our borrowing. And therefore, the essence of the monies that we are enhancing is basically to be able to provide for that. 145 billion Kenya shillings in this supplementary budget is going to just enhance the payment of our interest rates, both domestically and also in terms of foreign debt. Honorable Speaker, some members, and it's important that I clarify. Why do we have to keep up on raising our interest rates as a country? Why is T-bills now having much more yield than they were having in June? Honorable Speaker, when we are looking at the economy and looking at something we call balance of payment has two components. One is in the current account that records the net imports, that is the X minus M. But then there is another one that records capital inflows minus the capital outflows. Now, what happens is that when the other global interest rates are rising, if the current or the domestic interest rates that does not go in tandem, then what happens, Honorable Speaker, is that we make other economies more attractive for investment. And that is why Kenya cannot be isolated. When the global interest rates are rising, Kenya also raises so that we can also attract capital inflows within the country. That is one of the reasons we had to raise or to increase our budget in this supplementary budget. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, is that when we are doing the budgeting for a country, we use financial years. That is from June to June. But when the country is doing other arrangements, for example, education, we do that cognizant of the calendar year. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, one of the other reasons that we did this supplementary budget in regards to figures is that we needed to capacitate our education sector by capitalizing it more. So what we have done in that regard, Honorable Speaker, is that we have added close to, not close to, but over 70 billion Kenya shillings into our education sector. Honorable Speaker, it is important that I let the members know that our education sector currently is taking up 700 billion Kenya shillings of our budget, which is commendable, Honorable Speaker, because these are monies that are going into the tomorrow of our country. And Honorable Speaker, this is an investment. Honorable Speaker, out of that money that is going to education, 5.4 billion Kenya shillings is going into JESS capitation, because we are adding much more money into JESS so that parents do not have to cough money out of their pockets come January, and especially for those who will be joining JESS in January. Honorable Speaker, secondly, we have been able to add over 20 billion Kenya shillings into our higher education, Honorable Speaker, we have capitalized our help more to be able to give loans to higher education students and also to provide scholarships to higher education students and especially universities. Honorable Speaker, also we have added over 5 billion Kenya shillings into our TVETs. This money is going into payments of scholarships also to TVET students. Honorable Speaker, there is something I also want members to put a keen listening ear on. Honorable Speaker, in education, and Honorable Speaker, is important for members to note, we have added an extra 3.4 billion Kenya shillings into JSS infrastructure, that is laboratories, and that is other infrastructure related to JSS. And something we have done is that we have moved this money from the Ministry of Education. In this appropriations bill, if you check, 3.4 billion Kenya shillings we removed from the Ministry of Education, and we took that money to the Department of Planning so that that money goes to NGCDF for these members of this house to manage the construction of JSS infrastructure. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, we have been able to add 1 billion Kenya shillings. You know, Honorable Speaker, Nairobi is our capital. Whether we come from any other area of the country, from Murang'a to Taveta to Marsabit, to Iraret in Marsabit, or any other area, Nairobi is still our pride as our capital. But Honorable Speaker, Nairobi County has the highest number of school-going children who have no access to education. So what we have done in that regard is that we have added Nairobi County Kenya shillings 1 billion, monies that will go into enhancing infrastructure in our primary schools and secondary schools within Nairobi, because statistics in the Ministry of Education is very clear that Nairobi County is much more disadvantaged when it comes to infrastructure, and that is why many school-going children are not able to access education. Honorable Speaker, the third thing that made us have this supplementary budget is primarily the domain of our economy. The domain of our economy is that Kenya is still agrarian in nature. Honorable Speaker, agriculture employs the bulk of the Kenyan citizens. Actually, in rural areas, 70% of the residents in rural areas are employed by the value chains around agriculture. And Honorable Speaker, what we have done is that we have added 8.25 billion Kenya shillings into fertilizer subsidy for the next season. Honorable Speaker, we have also added more NCPB to mop up maize, Honorable Speaker, and we have also added monies for post-harvest management when it comes to maize, because we are expecting a bumper harvest as farmers are harvesting. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we were able to add more money that will go into that. Secondly, within agriculture, I have good news for the areas that are represented by members here of Kenyans who do sugar farming, because we were able to add, Honorable Speaker, close to Kenya shillings 2 billion into sugar reforms. And these sugar reforms, Honorable Speaker, number one is to help our factories to be able to procure sugarcane using sucrose level. But also number two, we have input over close to 1.5 billion Kenya shillings into payment of arrears of sugar farmers who are owed monies of sugarcane that they have already provided. Honorable Speaker, we also have good news for farmers of Kenya who are engaged in coffee production, because we have added Kenya shillings 4 billion into coffee farming and specifically into coffee cherry farm, so that the farmers of Kenya who do a marvelous job in terms of balancing our payments, Honorable Speaker, to be able to produce more coffee, and that is why we have recapitalized the coffee revolving fund, Honorable Speaker, with Kenya shillings 4 billion. Honorable Speaker, there are much more that we have been able to do in these supplementary estimates, because we believe that a country that is run by people is dynamic. And therefore, the budget that we made in June, a lot has happened. And therefore, we just needed to align the government resources to be able to go into areas that we deem have very high or are much more effective in terms of turning around inputs into outputs. And Honorable Speaker, agriculture has been seen to be a part of that. As I come to the conclusion, it is important because budget making process affects the entire economy that I highlight one area that members have been asking. Members have been asking, why is our currency decimated? Why is our currency on the receiving end in regards to other global currencies? Honorable Speaker, for the last 11 times that the Federal Reserve has met, that is the Federal Reserve of the US, they have consistently been raising interest rates. In January of 2022, the Federal Reserve rate in the US was in the band of 0% to 0.25%. They have then raised interest rates for 11 consecutive times, up to now the band of 5.25% to 5.5%. How is that related to the Kenyan shilling? Honorable Speaker, what has happened when the US raises interest rates, there is capital flight from all the other emerging economies like Kenya and the rest. And therefore, we have seen a lot of capital outflows from emerging economies like Kenya. Of course, the investors going into the US where they don't need to worry about currency devaluation. Honorable Speaker, the second thing is the regime of the central bank. Honorable Speaker, the central bank has three critical areas that it needs to do other than regulation of the financial institutions. And the critical role of the central bank is to set prices. And there are three categories of prices. One, there is prices of commodities, which we call inflation. Then there is the price of money, which we now use interest rates. But then there is the price of the domestic currency, which is forex or exchange rate, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, the regime of the central bank affects how the domestic currency or the direction it takes. For the past 6 years, we have seen in Kenya that the central bank, whereas we are known that Kenya has a floating exchange rate regime where it is a matter of demand and supply, within that floating regime, there are two categories. There is the managed exchange rate regime, which is floating, but also there is independent. For the last 6 years, Honorable Speaker, Kenya adopted a managed independent a managed floating regime, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, what we used to do, we could offload our dollars when we could see our shilling is weakening. And therefore, we were able to manage our local currency, although artificially. Honorable Speaker, the current regime is that of independent, so that the shilling gets its true value in relation to other global currencies. Honorable Speaker, some members would then ask, why is also the shilling losing against, for example, the UGX, the Ugandan shilling, or the Tanzanian shilling? But Honorable Speaker, if you check the economic data of the Ugandan shilling versus the Kenyan shilling, the Tanzanian shilling versus the Kenyan shilling, you realize we are at the same level we were during Kibaki's time, around 2010 or thereabout. Why? Because now when the shilling finds its true value, then it is able to relate with other currencies independently. And Honorable Speaker, that is the main reason that we have seen some devaluation in the Kenyan shilling as it fights its grounding in an independent floating regime. Honorable Speaker, with those many words, I really want to thank all the members of this House. The Budget and Appropriations Committee always benefit greatly by listening to all these members. The majority of them even come to my office. They give me a lot of guidance and counsel, and therefore the work that we do, including the one of supplementary budget, is the collective wisdom of this House. I also want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, to thank the leadership of the House, of course led by our clerk, the leadership of the Parliamentary Budget Office, and especially to cite one director called Dr. Maside, there is a very important people, Honorable Speaker, who have been by my side all through, and they are here. There is Dr. Abel and Julie, and there is Dan. And Honorable Speaker, by coincidence, I went to Kenyatta University, and almost all these economists are from KU, Honorable Speaker. Including Honorable Speaker, the Deputy Majority Leader of this House, and the Chairman of ICT, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure those who never got an opportunity to go to KU, they can still do a postgraduate something around that institution. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to call upon the member for Oljororok, very effective member of our budget committee, to second this motion.
Proceed, honorable member. Give him a mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I second.
Thank you. That is KU in action. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, and order. Order, McClap. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriations Bill number 3, National Assembly Bill number 71 of 2023 be now read a second time. Honorable members, I want to give you some direction. This is literally a replica of the committee report. And I want us to agree how much time we want to spend on this. In my thinking, if the screen is full, contrary to my earlier advice, if we'll have some debate, it's now 3:15. I will allow short debate up to 3:45. Then we can, how much time do you want everybody to take? 3 minutes. Irene Mayaka, I've called you to speak. I see you on the screen. You have 3 minutes. At 3:45, I'll call the mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I hear someone asking me my school. My school is the University of Nairobi, the only university we are there. Honorable Speaker, in regards to this particular bill, the appropriation bill, I want to stand here to just make a few remarks. And Honorable Speaker, I will be very brief because for me, the one area that I really have a concern for is R1017, where we have sought to increase the amount allocated to State House to a whopping 2 billion. And Honorable Speaker, I keenly listened to the Chair of Budget when he was giving us his remarks in support of why it is 2 billion. And I remember him mentioning that the reason for this is that the head of state would like to have more meetings in State House, including building a pavilion. But Honorable Speaker, we are experiencing extraordinary times, which means we need to make extraordinary decisions. And for me, if we must have meetings, then why don't we have online meetings? For example, why can't we have a Zoom meeting where the head of state can have Zoom meetings so that we even save more money? And for me, Honorable Speaker, I feel that this amount of money allocated is a bit too much. And the one area that I really want to support is the area of the diaspora. Diaspora has been allocated an approximate amount of 1 million. And for me, I feel this is an area that needed to have a bit more money allocated to them. And the reason for this is because we have a lot of investments coming from the diaspora people out there, and we need to to capacitate and actually have proper infrastructure to make sure that we have actual data of which Kenyans are these that are in the diaspora, how much money are they making, how much taxation is coming through. But if we are allocating very little money towards this infrastructure, then we're not going to get the possible results. Honorable Speaker, as I finish, there's also an allocation for the Deputy President's office. And Honorable Speaker, I listened very carefully when the Deputy President mentioned that he also wants to eat seafood and lobsters in his office. And I'm just wondering, this additional allocation, is it for these lobsters and seafood? Because if we are all making sacrifices and reducing the amounts allocated to each and every area, then we need to make proper sacrifices. It cannot be luxurious sacrifices that you're making. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I think we really need to review the estimates that we've indicated here and have estimates that actually speak to the current economic situation of this country. I thank you.
Justice Kamei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me, and I'll be very brief. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee for a job well done. When I was listening to him, Mr. Speaker, I thought I was listening to the Minister for Finance. And I tried to look around to see whether he was reading from something, and apparently he was speaking from his mind. That is the way to go. But Mr. Speaker, I have 2 points. Number one, the increase for the Ministry of Education is well guided. We must have enough money for our JSS schools because the program that we started the other day, and it must work. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the increase in the amount of money given to the agricultural sector, and particularly, Mr. Speaker, as I come from the cane growing regions of Western Kenya, the money that will be used to pay arrears for farmers for public-owned mills. That I want to commend the Budget Committee for that decision. Mr. Speaker, I'm a little bit worried about the cane testing units. And I want to find out, Mr. Speaker, have these cane testing units which have been put in various sugar factories in the country really working? We must ask the question because we are giving about 400 million for cane testing units, Mr. Speaker. I want to beseech the chairman of the Appropriations Committee and my chairman in Agriculture to find out whether these cane testing units are working. And finally, Mr. Speaker, he spoke about Kenyatta University. If that is where economists are produced, I'm also an alumni of the University of Wales, the School of English Studies in Cardiff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Onchoke. Charles Onchoke.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. We're having a supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, against the backdrop where the country doesn't have a medium-term plan. One wonders how we can manage our economy without a medium-term plan. We are 11 months into the year without a medium-term plan. So the numbers probably we are talking about are flying all over the air. Mr. Speaker, listen to the chairman of budget talk about our economies. It's good to compare ourselves with the other economies, but it only goes as far as to give direction on how we need to manage our economy. The fact that the Federal Reserve has increased the interest rates of the USA for a number of times is not a reason for Kenya not to manage its economy better. Thank you.
Yes.
It's no reason for Kenya not to manage its economy better. We are in a situation where the interest rates are high, and the reason why our shilling is depreciating against the international strong currencies is because our imports are falling short of, our exports are falling short of imports. In other words, we are consuming more imports than exports. Why are our exports falling short of imports? The reason is our main exports like agriculture, tea, coffee, horticulture are falling. Why are they falling? It's because the Kenyan
Your time is up. KJ. And you are not Nairobi, you are KJ, member for Dagoretti South.
Mr. Speaker, you got that very right. And an alumni of the great Kenyatta University, where I have great company in the plenary. I'm in the company of the greats like the Honorable Chair for Finance, the Honorable Chair for Budget and Appropriation, and many other greats, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to first congratulate the Budget and Appropriations Committee for burning the midnight oil and delivering this supplementary budget on time. What needs to be spoken, Mr. Speaker, because we can't go into the details in 3 minutes, is the style and manner in which the BAC approached budgeting this year. Mr. Speaker, the involvement of members of parliament, and especially the chairs of committees, was something unprecedented. We have to commend the new style and approach that has been adopted by the Finance Committee that is very inclusive and very considerate of the issues that are coming out from the members. As a member of parliament representing a Nairobi constituency, Mr. Speaker, we do appreciate that in this budget, we have been able to put in 1 billion Kenya shillings, monies that is being transferred into the planning ministry so that it can be appropriated through the CDF so that we can expand our primary schools in this city. Mr. Speaker, the primary schools in Nairobi have come to a state where some of them have been condemned as unfit for human occupation. Some schools that last were attended to in the era of the Nairobi City Commission. Some were attended in the era of the Nairobi City Council. Some were attended in the eras of Mayor Margaret Kenyatta. This is the time, Mr. Speaker, that we get the opportunity to bring up some of these schools up to standard. Mr. Speaker, the investment in the digital space is also commendable, Mr. Speaker, that the digital economy and the ICT sector did get a small boost with an improvement of the monies that have been appropriated to this sector. So, Mr. Speaker, I do call upon members of parliament to take the opportunity and honor the pledges that they made at the Kamkunji that you convened so that we can have digital innovation hubs in each and every single ward of this country. These digital innovation hubs, Mr. Speaker, are impressive. The few that have already been put up are already converting learners into earners. Young people who are walking into our TVETs, getting the digital literacy skills, getting trained on how to be able to work on online jobs and earning in dollars. Mr. Speaker, I will want to end it here by associating myself with the words of the chair that KU does produce brilliant minds, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Masinde and the other lady who has been supporting this committee are well known to me as extremely brilliant minds. And Mr. Speaker, there is a case to be made for the generational conversation that the people who are running the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker, are of a certain average age. When you look at the chair of budget, look at the chair of finance, look at Daktari and the people who are working, this is a generation that needs to make its mark akin to the generation of the Mwai Kibakis, the Kenneth Matibas, the Martin Shikukus, who are able to bring up a Kenya that was so brilliant in the 60s and the 70s that it was recognized all over. We are seeing a situation where we are bringing up leaders of a new generation that will make this country the envy of the people around this region, in the East African region, the envy of Africa, and the envy of the world. Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Joseph Oyula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to also support the supplementary budget. Mr. Speaker, I start by congratulating the chair of the Budget Committee for being very eloquent in his presentation of this supplementary budget. Mr. Speaker, as much as I support the increases and the adjustments that have been made, I would want to ask the Budget Committee to start thinking towards the reduction of there's an increase in the deficit. We should start thinking about the reduction of the deficit. Let us now start looking at a balanced budget. I know it is not something that can be done easily, but let us put our minds of bringing the budget, the deficit down, so that Kenya is also seen to be doing its operations in a more considerate manner. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to thank the budget chair and encourage him to start looking at the reduction of the deficit in the future. Thank you.
Beatrice Kamei. You're on the screen. I see you exclaiming. Are you ready for this?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to first thank the chair of this budget and appropriation and his members for the work well done, and to also appreciate the fact that he went to Kenyatta University. Those are great brains. I also went to the same university. So I'm here to appreciate this budget. Now, when it comes to the side of agriculture, I was trying to look at the tea sector, and I was wondering how much has been added to it, but I am made aware that the side of fertilizers is where the tea farmers will benefit from. For the coffee, 4 billion is good money, and the reforms will support many of our coffee farmers. Kericho, we have coffee, and the farmers had left coffee because the payment was very low. With this increase, I am sure coffee farmers will smile all the way to the bank. But I feel more money should have been allocated, Honorable Speaker, to tea farming. Milk, Honorable Speaker, the new KCC, having been added 1.5p, is very, very important. And I know many of our farmers will benefit from that, small and large-scale farmers. For the education sector to have 70 billion is a great achievement. We are investing for today and tomorrow. And I appreciate this committee for that, Honorable Speaker. Not to forget that the money allocated to affirmative action, which is more on the sanitary towels, will be a plus now that it is domiciled not in the side of Ministry of Education, but in affirmative ministry, gender ministry. I appreciate that, Honorable Speaker. So with that, I say this is good, but I believe when it comes to implementation, it will be done to the later, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kutoa sauti yangu katika makadirio ambayo yameletwa hapa bungeni ya nyongeza. Niweze kusema kuwa naunga mkono ambayo imeongezwa katika elimu, katika mambo ya usalama, mambo ya afya na mambo ya ukulima, kwa sababu huu ukulima ndio uti wa mgongo wa taifa hili, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na kama ilivyo hali yetu imekuwa tata katika taifa hili, uchumi umekuwa mbaya, upande wa wakulima wakiongezewa itaongeza uzalishaji na ile economy itapanda juu, uchumi utakuja juu, na na imani baadaye rais wetu waweza kupunguza sasa zile task ambazo zimekuwa zikitujia kila wakati, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, pia lazima niangalie upande mwingine, nikiangalia ile bajeti ambayo umeongezwa katika Ikulu na ile ambayo imeongezwa katika naibu wa rais, Mheshimiwa Spika, naona hiyo kidogo ingewachwa mahali ilipo, kwa sababu mwanzo ilivyowekwa kwanza kulikuwa na utata, Mheshimiwa Spika. Wakipunguza lakini pia waweze kuongezea huku kwenye afya, kwenye ukulima, kwenye usalama, na kwenye elimu, Mheshimiwa Spika, itagusa nyoyo za wananchi wengi na itaweza kumpa hata umaarufu zaidi katika uongozi wake, itaweza kutuliza nyoyo za Wakenya ambao wanahangaika kwa wakati huu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo upande wa bajeti mimi naweza kusupport katika sehemu hizi 4 ambayo ni ukulima, usalama, elimu na mambo ya education. Lakini upande wa State House, Mheshimiwa Spika, samahani, mimi kama mama county naona pale ibaki vile ilivyo. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you. Ferdinand Wanyonyi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to add my voice on this supplementary budget. First and foremost, I want to thank the the chairman, for at least allocating resources to areas that actually are need. I particularly, Mr. Speaker, and I've asked him and he's just told me, confirmed that agriculture today is a shame that Kenya, being a country on a tropical area, is actually a net importer of food in this country. Something that we must take it very seriously. I want to find out how much money has been given to agriculture, because, Mr. Speaker, we are embarrassing ourselves. How do we import food? How do we import maize in this country? It's because I think we have not taken it very seriously, but I hope the supplementary budget, and I want to look at the figures, that we should actually be able to have more money put in agriculture, get irrigation equipment in these areas that actually need irrigation. Can be able to buy some equipment so that during the dry season, we can be able to irrigate areas to be able to produce enough land, enough food for this country. I want to agree that he has put some money, but whether it's enough or not, I think is something that we want to sit. And I've just talked to my chairman here. We have to sit down and look at it and be able to see if we can get enough money to be appropriated into agricultural sector of this country. It's a shame that we import food. Now Kenya is a net importer of the food, which is not something, the Speaker, that is very embarrassing. With those few remarks, I support the supplementary budget, and I hope the chairman will look at it critically to be able to look at that and be able to see what he can do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ferdinand. Bowen.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the supplementary budget. And congratulate my good friend, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. He's bragging about Kenyatta University. At the time, during our time, the Kenyatta University was a school of arts and education. It was a college of education and arts. Mr. Speaker, the Jomo Kenyatta University, and we are many of us here from JKUAT. We are many. So, Honorable Speaker, let me support this appropriation bill and commend the committee of Ndindi Nyoro for the good job. Mr. Speaker, the only issue I have, especially as a chair of Blue Economy and Water, Mr. Speaker, if you check the northern Kenya and the coastal region, Honorable Speaker, which is very bad, partly affected by the floods. Mr. Speaker, those regions, as we speak, there is no even drinking water. And if you see from the budget which the Honorable Ndindi has just tabled here, there is very little as located to those regions to address the issues of El Nino and the floods. Mr. Speaker, I appeared before the committee to present the case of these regions, and I don't know how much the Honorable Chair has given, because, Mr. Speaker, these are people currently, they are not even asking, they are not talking about coffee, they are not talking about maize, they are not talking about fertilizers, they are talking about livelihood, drinking water for them and their livestock. Mr. Speaker, many of us who are pastoralists,
I'm talking on behalf of the pastoralists now, Mr. Speaker. In this budget, Mr. Speaker, we have seen there is a significant amount of money allocated for coffee, for tea, which we have not even seen. I thought initially, Mr. Speaker, tea was supposed to be like fruits because I had not seen a tea tree. So, Mr. Speaker, I want when we do a budget, we do a balanced budget for the entire country to make sure that every Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, because all of us, we are taxpayers, we make sure that there is a balanced budget which touches across the economy of this country, including us, the pastoralists. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of security, Mr. Speaker, last week, Mr. Speaker, we approved our men in uniform to go to Haiti. And Mr. Speaker, if you come to regions like Kerio Valley, where I come from, the northern Kenya, the Turkana, that side, there is no security. So I was seeking that in this budget, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro's committee and the also Treasury allocate enough money to address the issue of insecurity in northern part of the country and also the Rift Valley. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, from the budget I've seen from the Honorable Chair, it's generally a good budget and I support, but I'm only telling the Chair next time when we are going to supplementary 3 or supplementary 2, they reach the parts of Kenya which he has forgotten in his budget now, he makes sure that it is addressed properly. And as we proceed, Honorable Speaker, also to approve this appropriation bill, the supplementary one which we passed in this house, we have not seen the exchequer. We have not seen their projects at that time when it was approved. Many government agencies went to advertise projects and some contractors went to do some work, but that exchequer has not been released up to now, and we are talking again, passing supplementary 2. Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, go back to Treasury and speak well your economics. I had minus X, minus M, which you talked here. We don't want the minus X, we want to see the real figures in people's, yes, the real money in Kenyan pockets.
Karole Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm actually waiting for the next order, if it could be expedited. Thank you.
Now you are falling victim of my direction. If you are not speaking to the order on the floor, try as much as you can to get yourself off the screen so that we can be able to. Atandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support the motion as presented by my able chairman. Honorable Speaker, in this supplementary budget, the House has allocated sufficient resources to the security agencies, Department of Defense, NIS, and the general security of the country. Honorable Speaker, my prayer is that after this bill is passed, that the relevant agencies will do their best to address the question of insecurity in the country. Honorable Speaker, there is criminal gangs are running amok in this country. Honorable Speaker, yesterday, criminal gangs in my constituency attacked police officers who are guarding exams. And they were able to kill one police officer and injured another one. And went away with the guns. As we talk, 2 guns are in the hands of criminals in Siaya. So, Honorable Speaker, this is something which this House needs to take note of. And the security agencies have no excuse from today, after this budget is passed, not to be able to address insecurity challenges across the country. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Maklap.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I rise to support the Honorable Chair for budget on this S1, supplementary 1. So, Speaker, I have listened carefully and I've also gone through the budget, the supplementary 1. that 1.8 or thereafter billion was allocated for compensation of farmers or payment of farmers that were not able to, the state-owned sugar factories were not able to pay them. So Speaker, I support the payment of farmers because they are suffering and they supply their gain. But the problem, Mr. Speaker, is we have actually sanitized corruption. What about the people who stole that money that the government is paying now? What has happened to them so that they can be able to replenish? Because other taxpayers are now contributing to the mess of some individuals who ran down those factories and made away with that money. What action are we going to do so that as majority of us of Kenyans who are not sugarcane farmers are actually contributing to sort out a mess of individuals who are now scot-free? So Speaker, I support the payment of the farmers. Coffee, 4 billion to support coffee farmers. I have not seen something of tea. I have not seen something to support restocking of pastoralists, because now El Nino is when pastoralists will be able to raise a number of livestock that have been lost through drought and rain. Mr. Speaker, where is something for us? Those of us who come from the pastoral economy, who want to do now restocking, because we lost the majority of our animals in drought and in banditry, Mr. Speaker. We need this country to be equal. We need fairness in Kenya. As we do coffee in those places that grow coffee, we sort out farmers in those places they grow sugar. We also need to sort out farmers who grow tea. We need to sort out farmers who actually raise livestock for survival, Mr. Speaker, in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I also want to congratulate my chairman here for sorting out 6.3 billion for security, for modernization of security. But Mr. Speaker, that modernization of security should not just be the police. That modernization must also go to the NBRs of Kenya, who are actually cutting community interests and their lives, Mr. Speaker. Modernization of NBR is required so that they have the right gear and the right weapons to be able to combat with crime that has already exceeded police force, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker,
your time is up.
Mr. Speaker, just one. Mr. Speaker, I agree that going forward in this country, we need a balanced budget. A balance. During Nyachai's time, I was not in parliament. There was a time Nyachai brought in a balanced budget, revenue equal to expenditure. Mr. Speaker, during Kibaki's time, we financed our budget at a deficit of only 5%. Going forward, so that we don't sort out a problem caused by Bretton Woods institutions like World Bank and IMF, we need to move forward and swallow the bill and do a balanced budget that will be able to sort Kenya, and we don't go to the crisis of debt repayment and even increasing supplementary because of things that we don't have control as a nation. So, Speaker, I rise to support.
Mover.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I want to take very little time in replying. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank all the members who have said something about this supplementary budget, and it's important that I mention so that I also reply to their concerns. Number one, on Honorable Irene on State House. Honorable Speaker, I explained that in the second reading of the report. And the fact of the matter is that State House had not been given enough money in the main budget. And we did that consciously because there were more pressing needs. So we are just reinstating the budget that they never got in the first place in the main budget. Secondly, on diaspora, the 1 million shillings is an addition. You know, Honorable Speaker, this was a budget to cut. So they should actually be very happy that there is an addition, because most 90% of the institutions of government or MDAs actually lost money. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of education raised by Honorable Justice, we have already added more money to education. It was actually the highest gainer after the payment of interest rates. On Honorable Nchoke, I agree on the issue of interest rates and Forex, that they have a big effect on the amount of money we end up paying our interest rates. Honorable Speaker, on Nairobi schools, as was highlighted by the chair of ICT, Honorable KJ, there was a clear need, specifically because land in Nairobi is very expensive, Well, we are expending our CDF monies in the other areas. The land we may purchase to build a school is relatively cheaper when you are not in Nairobi. And that is why Nairobi was considered, so that we have a semblance of equity also in our city. Many times you see the city of Nairobi, we see good roads, but there are very many informal areas and Kenyans who need our assistance. Honorable Speaker, I want to commend also Honorable Beatrice Kemei on the issue of milk. We have actually added more money to new KCC because we need them to mop out or to mop up much more milk. And especially, as Kenyans know, when it rains, we have more production of milk. And what happens is that the prices fall. This money is to mitigate that drastic fall in milk prices and as far as the farmers are concerned. Honorable Speaker, there is an issue that has been raised by many members on whether there is actually money for flood mitigation. Honorable Speaker, in the Department of Asals, there is around 6 billion Kenya shillings we put for emergency. In fact, this money is donor-funded money. So what we do is that the government of Kenya allocates exchequer money or domestic monies, and then every shilling we spend, we get reimbursement from World Bank. So when it comes to flood mitigation and assisting Kenyans who are victims of floods, there is sufficient money, Honorable Speaker, that we have put in this supplementary budget. Honorable Zamzam, thank you very much. The money for security is there. Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, and the chair for agriculture is here, he can confirm, Honorable Motonga, that this supplementary budget, the third gainer is actually agriculture. Agriculture in all respects. In terms of inputs, Honorable Motonga has been a very good chair of that committee.
Yes, order. What is the point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the chair for budget in order to mislead the House by telling us that money has been allocated for El Nino and other disasters, when in the book, we can see only money for capital expenditure, nothing for disaster. So where is he reading from? Whatever he's saying. We know that 22 counties are affected by disasters. So he should not speak to himself. He should speak to the House on what is table on the floor, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Chairman, wind up.
Honorable Speaker, I want to request my brother, Honorable Sani, that with very much due respect, because he's a very, very important member of this House, I could pinpoint to him where the money is after this. There is Kenya shillings, 6 billion shillings for emergency. And you know, such a matter is not a matter to come to and talk before this House and before these honorable members on issues that are not there. It is so important a matter that no one should play politics with. So there is money that the government of Kenya has already provisioned for disaster management. And as I said before, there is money